Hello and welcome once again to Ignite Your Impact. My name is Jen Rhodes. I am prepped and ready, glossed and glammed,
ready to roll,
set to sail.
Yeah, today could be interesting though.
Okay.
Jen's back from all her business travels and brought home a cold. So
just a little sniffle.
So she's coughing and sniffing in the microphone. I'll take over.
I feel better.
Otherwise, you can lead the charge.
I feel 100% better. I know my coach reached out over the weekend and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm literally laying in bed." So I did not get my 10,000 steps like I should have. I got 2,000 steps on Sunday and it felt great. It felt great. Got to watch some football, got to eat some tomato soup, and I'm back.
We're going to try and knock this out.
Yeah, sometimes you just need a little resty poo.
Yep.
So today I want to talk, I like talking about this specifically because I think people like to make fat loss art. And the way we attack it is more science and math. But we're going to talk about some of the art today.
Yeah.
I know that sounded very like Schoolhouse Rock, but we're going to talk about the hardest part and conquering the hardest part about losing fat. But I want everyone to listen very closely. So wherever you're at, if you're at home, if you're at the office, you're at the gym, you're driving, walking the dog, I need you to listen up. Those that listen closely on this topic are not only going to conquer the hardest part of losing fat, but you're going to be able to translate this into every part of your life.
Yeah, we're not going to try and throw out a bunch of metaphors, although there probably will be some. What we mean is this framework that we're going to go over. It's the exact framework that you can use in a lot of different areas just by tweaking it a little bit. I mean, trust me on this because I use this framework to lose fat. I use this framework to put on muscle. I've used this framework to stay lean. I've used it to help repair my marriage. I've used it to help restore and strengthen my relationship with my kids and to get financially free, just using this type of a framework. But today, I mean, we're talking about how to conquer fat. And we're going to stick to that fat loss today. Just know it is that with a few tweaks, it's the exact same framework that you need to use. But it's an important point. I would use this framework today when we're done with this podcast. I want you to take the tips that we give you, and I would use this to start working on your fat loss first. And the reason I say that is because once you do it with fat loss, that's something you can see in the mirror. I mean, you can see it, and it gives you proof that this actually works. And then you'll naturally start to use it in those other areas that I just mentioned. But start with the fat loss, which is why we're titling this the conquering the hardest part about losing fat.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Start with the visual first, because I mean, that's once you conquer that, it's like, oh crap.
It's proof.
Yep.
Proof that it works.
Which is usually all we need. So before we lay out the framework that you spoke about, I want to talk about some of the tactics that it does take to lose fat. The science, the math, right? But just using these tactics alone won't work for an extended period of time. So the framework that Matt's speaking about will help with losing fat, then keeping it off. Then you can translate it to other areas of your life. The tactics that I'm about to go through are not what this podcast is about. The tactics are not the framework, right? So the science is not the art. The framework is what I really want to drive home at the end to conquer the hardest part about losing fat. But I want to touch on the tactics first because you've all tried one or all of these tactics in the past. So going through the tactics, staying at a very high level in general, if you're trying to lose fat, you have to consume less calories than you expend. There's the math, right? We've talked about it before. A plus B plus C equals input. Make sure it's less than your output. There's your deficit. Before I go further, though, let me tell you why I say this in general. There's a lot of things that can go into this. What type of calories? Like, you can't just cut calories. And the big one, if you consume less than you expend and you aren't lifting and gaining muscle, you'll lose weight, but not fat. So there's a lot of other factors, though, but in general, consume less than you put out, right?
Yep. Lift
weights, you'll retain that muscle. Make sure you hit your protein, you'll save that muscle you just built. But I just don't want anybody to pop back and go, but what about this? So I'm saying in general. At the end of the day, the tactics really are as easy as consuming less than you expend. So we've got the nutrition piece, right? We've got the input piece. Now we're lifting weights and we're walking 10K steps a day and we're sleeping around 8 hours a day. That's the expenditure. And we're drinking enough water. And the super huge one, we're watching our stress.
Yeah, that's a big one that, even though this isn't about tactics, I do want to highlight that because I had a two weeks in a row of just extremely high stress going on in my life. And even with the tools that I have and I've developed and I've been trained on, I was still stressed. So those out there that have stressful situations, just know you're not alone. And I was trying to drop 5 pounds before a vacation that we have coming up. And I've done this a bunch of times. I can gain and drop 5 pounds easily. But this time that 5 pounds wasn't coming off. And I was using all the right tactics. Jen knew it was my stress. My coach knew it was my stress. I knew it was my stress. And I got through that 2 weeks. And I remember at lunchtime, it was noon. And I told Jen, I go, I finally feel like I'm good to go. I'm on top of everything that's going on. My stress is gone. And wouldn't you know it, the next morning I wake up, 1.5 pounds just drops, which is not normal. You don't normally lose 1.5 pounds in a day. It's that stress that got off.
How about that?
Yeah. But okay, that was off the topic.
Should we note I was right? Okay,
I agree with you. I was just having a hard time getting rid of the stress. But back to topics. So I'm guessing some of you, as Jen was saying, the things that you have to do, the nutrition, the steps, the lifting, all that, well, you're probably saying, well, that is the problem. That's why I can't conquer this fat loss, because the nutrition thing, that's the toughest part for me. That's what I can't get down. Or I can't get to the gym 3 to 4 days a week, or I can't fit in 10,000 steps. But you're saying, what are you talking about? That is the toughest part. And I will tell you from experience, you are wrong. But don't worry. When we give you the framework, you're going to understand how you can fix this. Because you can do a lot of things to try and get around this nutrition thing. And I want to touch on the nutrition because that pops up quite a bit. You can do a lot of things to get around that. You can try and outwork it by doing a bunch of cardio. You can go to the gym and jump all around. You can go do Orange Theory. You can do all that, but you don't have time to put that in the hours that it would take to offset the nutrition. Plus, if you're not lifting weight, as Jen said, you're going to lose weight. You're not going to lose fat. You can even try and starve yourself. Even if you are lifting weights and doing this, you're not giving your body the fuel that it needs to build muscle. So this is not going to work. One of my favorites, I love this one. The easy fix. Let's just go out and start ordering from HelloFresh or some other food delivery company, and that's going to fix our problem. The hardest part of losing fat is my nutrition, so let's just go hire them to do it. Well, great. What the fuck do you do when you start to travel? What do you do when you want to go eat out? How do you know those foods fit exactly what you're trying to do, the result that you want? What you're going to get is a bunch of food sitting in your fridge at the end of the week, and you have to throw it out, and after a month of doing that, you feel like you failed again.
Hold on, I feel victimized by that statement.
That is true.
Wait a second.
And I will get back to that. But it's a roller coaster. That's what happens. And I am not saying you should or should not use a meal delivery company. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not shitting on them. What I'm saying is that will not solve the number one thing you need to conquer the fat loss. So stop lying to yourself. Stop jumping to the next thing. It's not the meal delivery service. It's not the Orange Theory. They can all be a tool, but it won't solve the problem. Basically, stop finding the next thing. The thing you have to do before anything is you have to get your mind around the journey. This will conquer the toughest part about losing fat. This will also conquer the toughest part about keeping it off. I know that sounds simple. I'd like to say it is simple, but it's not as simple as it sounds. But if you use this framework, you can make it much more simple. Now, if you've tried the crazy cardio, starving yourself, the meal delivery, and the next big thing, maybe this is just what you need to do. Because you may hear it and say, really, does this really work? Well, maybe you've tried all that other shit, and maybe this is what you need to try this time. You know how I know that? Because even though I sounded like I was sort of making fun of the things that I just said, and Jen said, I feel victimized, the reason she said that is because we've done all those. We've been in your shoes. We know what works. We know what doesn't work. And that roller coaster sucks. And it sucked until I was shown a way to conquer this thing finally. I thought food was the hard part. It really was because I couldn't get my mind around the journey.
Yeah. I would also say, and tell me if this hits with your clientele as well. The minute this part of the journey is actualized and concrete, the next statement the next week on check-in forms is, I feel like everything's easy.
Yep.
I feel like it just got really easy. Like every single one of our clients that commits to this framework, the next step, the counting, the workouts, the steps, the sleep, become effortless.
Yep. Agree 100%.
So let's settle into this framework. I will tell you first, adapt this to how it works for you. Adapt this to how you learn and absorb information. Our clients have different lives. You have a different life than us. I'm not going to yuck your yum, right? Make it work for you. So it's important to understand the framework and then figure out how it's going to appeal to you most.
And you'll know when it just, you'll feel it.
Oh, yeah. Whole
Sorry
baby.
to interrupt, but yeah, it's like how do I know when it's going to, you'll know.
You'll know. It'll hit you like it's like a cartoon, like frying pan moment.
Yep.
Like, doing.
Yep.
And shout out to any of the clients that this has happened and you guys messaged us like, oh my God, this hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, yeah, cool, right? So you may have already done this first part. You may have already done the tactics and you may have already started the first part of this framework. But if not, here it is. I need you to go strip it on down. Guys say underwear. Ladies, we wear the panties. But take it all off and just go stand in the mirror. Remove all emotion. And this sounds scary, but you need to fully understand where you are at without emotion. We just need a visual. This is point A. And just be honest with yourself. There's no excuses. There's no hate. This is point A. And this is not a shame thing. Anyone that follows me knows that I am about zero shame. Remove the emotion, but you have to have a starting point so that you know once you start making progress, it's like, look how far I've come. This is to say, okay, I know where I'm at. I know I have to make changes, and that's it. It solidifies in your mind the decision to start, the decision to make changes. Now, what does that change look like? I'm an incredibly visible person. I don't know if you guys watch this on YouTube, but I'm always looking up. That's the visual part of your brain. You're trying to access a picture. So if you see me look up, I'm trying to find a picture so I can make it to relate in my brain with the language in my brain. So I'm very visual. It's also why I like using my hands. So I have pictures of what I want every section of my life to look like. My body, my hair, my face, my skin, my nails, my jewelry, my car.
For Jen, it's a vision board.
It is.
That's what she's talking about. That may not be for you, but that's what she's talking about as a vision board.
I love my vision board.
Yeah.
I envision it often, but I have pictures of that. I would encourage you to find some type of a visual, whether that's a movie or a public figure or, I don't want to say an influencer, but just something that gives you the idea in your head of that's what I want. That. And even if it's like, those weird hodgepodge like shoulders, abs, boobs, butt, shoes. You have to have the shoes. But what matches the look that you want and the attitude that you want? What attributes excite you about your own evolution? We're not comparing, but what gets you excited to make these changes? So now you have the vision down. And sometimes I like to put a date in. And that's not for a judgment if I don't hit that date, but it's so my brain understands, oh, we can cruise, or, oh, crap, girl, you need to haul ass. I just put a date in. I want to be at X point by X date. It's not necessary, but sometimes it helps clients to focus, especially if you're a calendar person like me, because I have to put it on my big-ass calendar. Next, you need to envision that new person that you are evolving into in a specific example. So let's say you want to take family Christmas card pictures. 'Tis the season, right? And that's in about 12 weeks. We're in early fall. Or better yet, for Christmas, you're going to get your family a beach vacation for spring break, guilty as charged, and you want to knock the socks off your spouse when you step onto that beach. And so are you thinking of that person that came to mind that you want to look and feel and move like? If you're not yet, that's okay, because you really need to go and put some thought into it. But you get that picture of how you will look. And you see yourself packing for that trip. Or setting out the outfits for that Christmas card photo. Or guys, you see yourself packing away those trunks in that suitcase. And they're going to fit. You don't have to question it anymore. And you don't need to cover up. Why would you? And you're full of excitement, that entire plane ride there. And you can picture checking in. And of course, they hand you a Paloma, because that's your favorite drink. And you can taste that. And you're excited for the next day. And here's where it is. You can picture that moment when you step out onto that beach. And your husband can't stop looking at you. Or you take off your shirt and your wife's eyes get big. I know you remember that moment where I was like, damn. Hey. And you can smell the salt water. You can smell the sunscreen. You can taste the fruity drinks wherever you're at. And you can feel the sun on your skin with a slight breeze. I want you to capture that moment. I want you to feel it in your bones, what that feels like. And I will tell you, it doesn't have to be some big event. I have so many clients use the image of just walking across the bedroom at night and like crawling into bed, feeling more confident without that shitty voice in their head. And instead of seeing their spouse on their phone, like scrolling through crap, they can see that their spouse can't keep their eyes off of them. But it isn't just about that walk. It's more about what it sounds like, feels like, smells like, Give me all the pixels of that moment. And okay, I said framework, and make it how it fits you and make it how it fits your life. Like, what gets your juices going, right? Like, what gets your ass in gear? What can you envision? Don't use mine. I want you to use yours. And I'll say it's funny because the last client that had the doing moment, her vision was entirely different than what I like. And again, we're not going to yuck someone's yum, but that's where the work is done. I am sure, I am positive you have at some point done a piece of this. And maybe you've gotten real with yourself. And maybe you've thought about what you want to look like. And maybe even thought about that moment. Like, that'll feel nice. And just kept going. And maybe you've even tied it all up together with that seductive lead up to the moment. All good. But you're still missing an important piece to this. But before I get to that piece, what needs to happen to get that look? So this is where we list the tactics. Don't get bogged down here. I need to have balanced macros. Balanced. Not restricted. Balanced. I need to eat clean. Shut up. Balance. Lift 3 to 4 times a week. 10K steps. Good sleep. Good water. Low stress. Keep it simple. Consistency in these basics. But this is not the key to getting your mind around the journey or even getting started on the journey. It's just a piece. See, some people would say, I'd like to lose 20 pounds. I hear that a lot, right? Or they briefly imagine a moment like I described, maybe walking into a high school reunion. And then they jump into some sort of a diet or a meal delivery or a fitness craze or a boot camp or blah, 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 challenges or something without getting their head around what they really want and the journey.
Preach. So I want to recap that and then hit the missing piece. So the first thing is you got to figure out what your starting point is. And then once you've done that, you've got to figure out what you want it to look like, which you did an awesome job of explaining that. That moment or those series of moments that it looks like, and then the tactics that you got to do. But the missing piece, Jen mentioned this, that the piece that you're missing, because you may have done some of those things and all those, is we talked a little bit about this on the last podcast, at least we said something. You got to get in the game of life, which means you've got to slow down and you've got to rehearse this daily. You can't just have this thought in this moment where you're thinking about this great thing and then your phone goes off and it's a text and then you got to deal with this email. You've got to spend some time rehearsing this daily. When you get up in the morning, you're going to think through this. That exact picture that Jen walked you through that fits your framework of how you want to do that. And then when you spend time during the day, you're thinking about this. When you do that during the day, you start eating a little bit healthier. Because your mind is focused on that outcome, that experience that Jen said gets your juices going. And when you have something that's possibly going to derail you, because it's going to happen, you take 15 seconds and you go back to that moment and you picture that moment of walking on the beach or crawling into bed or whatever it is that comes up for you. And it helps keep you on track. And at the end of the day, you do that same thing. You have that picture in your mind before you go to sleep. And I know it sounds all... I don't even know what you call it. You said the art.
It is artsy fartsy.
It's artsy, yeah. Artsy fartsy. But it freaking works. It works. The key to conquering the hardest part of fat loss is getting your mind wrapped around the journey. You do this framework for a week and the next week becomes easier, just as Jen said, or what clients say. You do it for a week and things become easier. All of a sudden eating balanced macros is pretty good when you're thinking about that moment that you want so bad. And then you do it for another week and you start to see some results from that point A that you originally did. And you're like, holy shit, this is actually working. I can actually see this happening because this is all I think about is this vision that I put in my mind. That gets you ignited to go. Then each week you just keep building and you keep building and you can feel that moment coming and you know it's inevitable and it's going to happen.
I love that. Why do you think we call it Victory Hour?
It's out there, but it freaking works because you've tried the tactics and they don't
But is
work
it out
every
there?
time.
Like, think about when you used to daydream as a kid, it felt like real,
Yeah.
right? But when the moment does happen, because you visualized it for how many weeks, how many months, you fucking embrace it. When that happened for both of our visions, it was like, God, this is exactly how I envisioned it. Like, this is exactly how I planned it. And you're ready to design the next framework of what you will experience. I know Matt and I have new visions, not necessarily with our physical body, but now in our professional life. What's that going to look like? What's that moment going to feel like? Because once you have that vision burned into your brain, willpower and sticking to those tactics is going to feel like a fucking cakewalk.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let's wrap there.
I like it. Guys, I hope this hit for you. If you like it, share it with someone you love. Tag us in your Insta stories. Give us a 5-star review. If anything, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, we'll see you next time.